everyone. Welcome to the Weird World podcast. My name is Carrie.
I'm Jack.
I'm Dean.
And Dean, we're going to do a part 2 of what you listened to last week.
Which is Test for Carrie.
Flight 170.
No, almost
Flight 370.
370, Malaysian Flight 370. The disappearance of Malaysian Flight 370 back on March 8th, 2014. So quick recap.
Previously
I probably should have looked that up before.
Yeah, probably so. So,
Okay.
March 8th, 2014, Flight 370 left Malaysia for Beijing. It was handed off to the Vietnamese air traffic controls. It headed north and over the South China Sea. Right then, or just after, the pilots signed off to Malaysian air control for the last time, and that was the last anyone ever heard from Flight 370 again. So immediately people think it had blown up. Was it hijacked? Did something happen to the pilots? Searched for a few days, naturally in the South China Sea, but didn't find anything there. Then Malaysian authorities admitted that, you know what, we actually did have some more information. The plane had weirdly taken a quick U-turn and flown back over Malaysia and then ran a path between Malaysia and Indonesia out into the Indian Ocean when it was pinged for the last time. And its communications also were disabled during this strange journey.
Suspicious.
Only it was technically not quite true that Flight 370 was never heard from again, because it turned out that these automated, quote, handshakes between the plane and a tracking satellite showed that actually Flight 370 had taken a left turn from the sort of the northeast Indian Ocean down south into the heart of the massive Indian Ocean, and it had stayed aloft for almost 7 hours at normal speed before finally going down and losing all communication, even these pings, these satellite pings. So what happened? Here in part 2, we're first going to look into the investigation. Then we're going to find out a little more about the first signs of the disappeared plane that washed ashore half an ocean away. Then we're going to take a stab at what might have actually happened to the plane and its 239 passengers and crew.
Damn.
So that's our recap.
Okie dokes.
Ready?
Yeah.
I am.
So first, let's start with that investigation. Though emergency and search personnel scrambled desperately to find out what happened to Flight 370 in Malaysia, these efforts were hamstrung from the get-go by Malaysian politics.
And where were they searching too?
Well, even yes, very much so. And what they were searching for. Well, what do you mean?
Well, they were really searching in the wrong place,
Yes.
right? 'Cause
Yeah.
the initial search was in the China Sea, right?
Yes,
South
that's true.
China
But even
Sea.
after that, even after Malaysian authorities informed the world that they actually had some radar readings of the flight and they knew it went out toward the Andaman Sea in the Indian Ocean, even the investigation of what happened, when they knew, they didn't find it for days, weeks, that is obviously a recovery mission, or a rescue mission.
Right.
So the Malaysian authorities throughout their investigation were dishonest, not just about what the radar, but throughout the whole process.
Can I ask you a question?
Hamstrung, yes.
What are the jurisdictional issues in something like this? Like who, if Malaysia just decided, oh, well, too bad, we lost a plane, to do nothing about it.
No one could force them to. In this case, Australia took over the search, though, on its own dime.
So that's my question. Anybody can start looking into it?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
Malaysia
it's
doesn't
not.
give a
there
shit.
were China, United States, several countries, European countries, and U.S., Canada, and Australia all invested. I don't think Canada did actually, but was investigating to some degree the case because they had nationals on board that plane.
And were all those countries cooperating?
Well, you would love for that to happen, and that should happen, and normally that does happen. In this case, not so much.
Really?
That's the whole point. The Malaysian authorities here they're afraid. We'll talk a little bit more about this later, but they were. It's kind of it was a corrupt semi-dictatorship. It wasn't a Western or Japanese or North American democracy, and they had a lot more worries than finding the truth when they were doing their investigations.
Yeah.
So
Like what? Like just like reputational?
very
or-
much so,
okay.
and not getting killed by the dictator. because you made the country look
Oh,
bad.
you mean investigators?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So they wanted it to go away. So early on, though, the last communication had been over the South China Sea. So naturally, that was where the search initially took place and was focused. And they did actually find an oil slick on March 9th, the day after the plane disappeared. But they tested that oil slick and they found that it was from a ship, not a plane.
Yeah.
So I know there's gonna be lots of oil slicks
Yeah.
there. There were even some more kind of false alarms the next couple of days. Chinese satellites picked up some debris in the South China Sea, and they released those pictures on March 12th. But again, investigators looked at that debris, and they, like the oil slick, they said that's not even from a plane. It's from a
Yeah.
ship again.
And the plane wasn't there.
It wasn't there, but we didn't know
But
that.
they
yet.
didn't know
They
that,
didn't-
yeah.
This time they
That's
didn't know
true.
that.
I keep forgetting
So
that.
they're searching for days
is still
before,
early
for a
on.
few days before the Malaysians admit that they know it's not of the South
Okay,
China
that was
Sea.
going to be my question. How long did it take the Malaysians to
On March 12th.
cough it
So
up?
about 3 days, March 12th, the Malaysian authorities admitted that, okay, we know, we had radar readings. We know that the plane took this U-turn very shortly after it was handed off to Vietnamese air control, and it had flown back over the Malay Peninsula, and then it headed west into the Indian Ocean. The next day, so the search was expanded into kind of the Andaman Sea, that part of the northern part of the Indian Ocean. But it was not until March 15th that the first of that key satellite signal evidence we talked about last time was made public, and then it became clear to people, okay, it had taken that another left and gone south into the Indian Ocean, and so it's probably not up there by India in the Andaman Sea. It's somewhere down further
Yeah.
south, and then eventually they'd figure out that it was somewhere off the western coast of Australia, but quite a 1,200 miles
yeah.
more.
It's just
Yeah.
in the middle of the ocean.
It really is,
basically.
and this is we'll talk about this in a second, but this is not a well trodden part of the world at all.
Yeah.
So why all the secrecy, as you were just asking? It was partly to protect intelligence capabilities. The Malaysian Air Force didn't want to say what they knew and how they knew it, because it's sort of your methods and sources, as they say in the intelligence parlance, that you want to protect that. So it's like, remember there was a while ago when Trump was still president, where he
Yes.
showed some satellite photographs to prove, in his mind, think he was right or something like that. It turns out that was a really dumb blunder, because it told everyone in the world about our capabilities, and that we
Right.
had much sharper and better and clearer satellite images capability than people had thought at the time.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what the Malaysian Air Force was doing. But really is also because Malaysia was just a hopelessly corrupt country, a very mean-spirited dictator who had disappeared some folks who crossed him. And then so they're worried about their jobs, and their safety even.
Yeah.
And so really throughout the process, the Malaysian investigation part of it was more about damage control than it was discovering the truth. Mm-hmm. That's just the sad fact. But the satellite evidence and the Malaysian admissions finally did send searchers to the right place, the Indian Ocean, the southern Indian Ocean. So the search area, though, was just, you can't stress it enough, it's this huge arcing swath of sea. By April 2014, the surface search was abandoned. They couldn't find anything there on the surface, so they said, we're going to have to go into the water and look for it there, look for debris in the water. So
Sunken airplane.
yeah, I mean, you're basically
Yeah.
looking for a little orange plastic box in this, massive,
Yeah.
In the ocean.
massive part of the ocean that they're pretty sure is somewhere in this huge arc. It was a near impossibility from the beginning. And since the Malaysians now, at this point, they had no capabilities of deep water searching, this is when Australia basically took over the physical investigation at great cost.
And how many nationals did they even have?
It was like 2 or 4.
Yeah, I was going to say,
think
it wasn't that
4.
many.
It wasn't that many.
Mostly
But
Chinese.
we think it's fairly close to us. We have the capability. We'll do it. So they handled it.
I like it.
Yeah, no, it was they didn't have to at all.
Yeah.
The likely site was about 1,200 miles southwest of Perth in an unexplored area of the Indian Ocean. They set about initially. They had to map that seafloor. It was
Jeez.
had never been mapped before.
Yeah.
Ain't that fun?
I
Where you
was-
at, Noah?
Yeah. I was thinking that might partially be a reason too.
Maybe.
I mean, it seems to me they like to explore oceans and stuff in Australia.
Carrie's
It
impression of
seems to
Australians.
me-
They just seem like an
they
explorer.
like the ocean,
They
yeah.
love the ocean. They like to explore.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
You're thinking of the Polynesians too, actually.
They all
Like,
do.
more so.
Over
Yeah, but-
down there in that place.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm assuming they don't have the resources that Australia does.
No, I was just never mind. So they
Seafaring
started to map the seafloor. They used side scanning sonar, And they actually found out that part of the ocean, the bottom, turned out to be this deep, dark series of underwater ridges and valleys. And it's the
Nightmare.
abyss. It goes into like 13,000 feet. It's the
Wow.
abyss down
Yeah.
there. And again, since the location was an estimate of this large arc of possible land, it was hopeless. So there was, however, some intriguing satellite images of possible debris in the search area. Early on, some satellites did pick up some stuff at the surface that said that could be plane debris from a crash. But every time the surface searches would go out roughly to where that was, they wouldn't find anything. It
Yeah.
either sank or it floated way away, or it's not like it's, you can beep, 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 and pinpoint from the satellite image exactly what part of the ocean that was.
Yeah.
And the beep, 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 beep is a well-known sound for
Satellite imaging.
Sure. There were also, by the way, some possible pings from the black box, the misnamed black box. But
I know.
they're actually orange. They're bright orange.
Hey, I have a question.
Yes.
Why?
Can black box pings go through water? I mean,
Yes.
if it is submerged,
Isn't it like
would
radio
still work.
Yes.
waves or something like that?
Yeah, and it has a battery that's supposed to last days. I can't remember how long. Or
Days.
typically, I don't think
I
it's
thought
super
it was
long. Maybe is it weeks?
I mean,
could be
I thought it
weeks.
was like not
Well, I'm not sure.
months,
Years.
but not days. I'd
No,
say
it's not
weeks.
years.
Not years.
No, okay, it's not.
Especially in the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably has a shorter lifespan.
These may have been pings from the black box, but it doesn't
Ooh.
matter. It's this frigid black abyss, thousands of feet below. They never found it.
Yeah. Where was Elon Musk and his
Fucking-
submarine back then?
Yeah, no, he doesn't. He does things that he thinks he can actually not fuck up. So, or actually, I think he does things that he knows he'd fuck up if people called his bluff, and he actually had to go do them.
Yeah.
He did Australia. He wanted to like I can power Australia in 30 days. No
Okay.
one's going to let you do that, and you know that. So it's
Yeah.
easy to say. I could do that too, Elon.
I'll bet
Give me
they
a
would
shot.
have let him fix all the old lead pipes in Flint. He didn't do that.
Yeah,
He
we're
said
backing
he was
Elon
going
Musk
to.
a lot in this show. I've just noticed.
I'm okay with it. This could
Fairly.
be a weird world. Coltland, fuck Elon Musk.
He's just such an unlikable douchebag.
He is.
So, all this effort, though, was to no avail. In January 2017, the search was suspended. 3 years, almost 3 years, $160 million.
Wow.
The Australians finally packed it in, and they still had no idea exactly where Flight 370 had gone down in the water, let
Wow.
alone any trace of wreckage or the flight recorder. There was nothing yet. By the way, at the time, it was the most expensive aviation search in history.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It may still be, actually.
$160
Yeah, I guess
million
so,
dollars.
That's
yeah.
a huge amount of money, yeah.
That's a huge amount of money.
Well,
Most of it was for the underwater expeditions. That was
Yeah.
very
Makes sense.
expensive. In 2018, a private American company called Ocean Infinity took over the search efforts, kind of. It was a, quote, no find, no fee arrangement with the Malaysian government. So they kind of, and basically what they mostly did was just sort of track over the same trodden ground that the Australians had, and they came up with nothing as well. So
Huh.
one of the most fascinating aspects of this story, I think anyway, is how searchers and investigators attempted to pinpoint the most likely location of the endpoint for flight MH370. And but this section I'm going to tell you about, we owe special credit to an article by William Langweish in the Atlantic magazine issue of July 2019. The stuff about Blaine Gibson that I'm going to talk about here is from that article.
What magazine?
The Atlantic.
Oh, the Atlantic. I didn't hear that part. I just read the magazine article from July of 2019. So which one?
Blaine Gibson was this kind of curious guy. He used a small family inheritance and this insatiable thirst for travel to kind of globetrot around the world. His mom had been taken into places that she traveled since she was 7 years old, so he had it kind of in his blood, right? As an adult then, he loved to try to uncover some of the world's great mysteries. So Gibson had gone to Guatemala to look for the whole end of the Mayan Empire thing, what happened to the Mayans kind of a deal.
okay.
Not the 2012 thing, I don't think, just like what happened to him. It
Oh,
is a
okay.
mystery.
It is a mystery.
Yeah. He'd gone to Ethiopia to search for the Ark of the Covenant. Well, Ethiopia
That
says we
makes
have it.
sense.
And
A lot.
we know what building it's in, they just won't show anyone.
So he
They
saw
do
the
have some of the oldest Christians.
They very much so, but
he
they
saw
don't
the
have the Ark.
Indiana Jones
Well, yes.
movies and decided,
Yes, yes. Oh, well, hold on.
Let's melt that face.
He had gone to Siberia to explain the Tunguska fireball of 1908.
Hey.
Past episode.
Bitch, you're welcome. That was me.
Maybe a bit pompously, he wore an Indiana Jones fedora.
No.
And he had a business card that read, quote, adventurer, explorer, truth seeker.
Oh
If
my
he gets a whip,
God.
I'm out of here.
So it sounds like he's a little full of himself, sure, but he did some good work here.
Did he solve any of the world's mysteries?
In this case, he got a little closer in this case.
Oh.
So he's living his best life, and this best life for Gibson allows him to follow the Malaysian Flight 370 story. He starts following it very quickly. He was fascinated by it, and he thinks to himself, let's look for the debris. Won't that, if we find some debris finally floating onto some shore, that could tell us something, right?
Yeah.
And he's living in Laos at the time. He's running a restaurant on the Mekong River.
Wow.
He's an
Laos.
adventurer, dude. So, I mean, he has the card to prove it. He started following
And the fedora.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
He started following his Facebook page about the missing plane. Remember, this is a huge thing. There were groups.
Yeah.
And there
Oh,
are groups of
yes.
really qualified scientists looking at this, aviation scientists and others looking at this from the very beginning and they were actually very respected by the experts officially on the investigation. Well, some of them were. And he began to wonder from his following this Facebook page, what would happen, shouldn't there be some debris washing up?
Somewhere.
And what could we tell? And so he then went in March 2015, he went to the first anniversary of the crash in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, and he met some of the families of the survivors. They gathered together to meet and have a memorial, right, in Malaysia, even though, again, most of them were Chinese. So he came away from this just determined to help. He decided the role that he could fill to help would be trying to find that debris washed up on beaches, and from that evidence figure out more precisely where the plane had gone down. So he became kind of this vagabond beachcomber, but one with a very, very specific target. Soon, word came from Reunion.
The island?
The island, yes. Reunion is an island controlled by France in the Indian Ocean. It's about 340 miles, 550
it's
kilometers.
Réunion. Did you say it right?
550 kilometers east of Madagascar. It's basically 1,000 square mile active volcano. That's it. If you look at a map, it's basically it's a big ass volcano cone. And it has these beautiful white sand beaches, though, around it, though. So
that's
it's a
it?
tourist destination.
Oh.
Pretty much. I mean, it's very mountainous. It's very much beaches, and then you start going up into the middle. There's a crater or, a volcano cone. It's an active volcano. It occasionally belches smoke. On July 29th, 2015, a jagged piece of metal had washed ashore on one of those beautiful east-facing beaches of Reunion. Jack, how would you pronounce it?
Your turn,
Okay. Réunion.
bitch.
Just see, you pronounce it like you're not actually having different syllables. Réunion. And that's the part of the island that faces the southern Indian Ocean, out toward where the plane would have gone down. So this piece was about 6 feet long. Local authorities were able to determine that it was it was a part of the back of the wing of a Boeing 777. It's a piece called the flaperon. And as you know, it was a Boeing 777 was flight 370. So they checked the serial number on it. Luckily, it had serial number still on it,
Yeah.
and
It matched.
it did match.
Oops.
It was a part of flight MH370, the first part to have been found.
Do
So-
they stamp serial numbers all over
They must.
airplanes and?
Maybe for this reason, too.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that's really the reason, but yeah, they seem to have a lot of serial numbers. So Gibson, boom, he took the next flight out to Reunion. The French authorities, in the meantime, before he got there, they hadn't found anything else, but they would later, after Gibson had left the island, they would later find a water bottle from China. And remember, most of the passengers were Chinese,
Yeah.
and a bottle of cleaner from Indonesia. There were some Indonesian folks on there as well. Or, it's not positive, but it's pretty likely that both of those items came from Flight 370. And by the way, Reunion is very consistent with any kind of debris dispersion kind of modeling from currents. So it made sense that they were there. They should be heading west toward Reunion and further west after that, which we'll talk about here in a second. So Gibson then he gets this piece to Reunion. He looks into it. He's even more fascinated. So he jets off to Australia because he wants to talk to some experts on Indian Ocean currents. He wants to know where else what are the other likely places that more debris might wash ashore? What did they say? They say, you know what? Let's think about that. They thought about that, and they said Mozambique on Africa's southeastern coast. That's a pretty good chance. And also the island nation of Madagascar, which lies between Reunion and the African coast. So, you're heading west from where the plane went down, which is well off the western coast of Australia. You hit Reunion first, but it's a speck in the ocean. And then you hit the much, much larger island of Madagascar. And after that, if you cleared Madagascar, you would hit the coast of Africa, the southeastern coast, most of which is Mozambique in this part. Okay. So Gibson, he thinks about this and he says, you know what? I've been to Madagascar, but I have not yet knocked Mozambique off my bucket list. I'm going to Mozambique. So he was, he wanted to be a little strategic about it too. So he gets there, he posts up on this beach in a small town called Vilanculos. Mozambique, by the way, was settled by Portuguese.
I was going to say.
So,
yeah.
Okay.
He was there in February of 2016, and he's there. He's just asking around. That seems like his motive. His MO was to, okay, you see anything wash up, I'll give you money for it. And some local fishermen said, hey, there's a sandbank offshore from our village, and we often go out there and we find oceanic flotsam, stuff that we recover, like nets or buoys, things like that. There's other crap out there too, but there's a lot of flotsam out there. Maybe check there. So he says that sounds promising. He hires a local fisherman named Suleiman to take him out there in his boat to this reef, right? And they indeed do. On that first day, they pull up a 2-foot triangular scrap of metal from all the junk, most of which is plastic trash, as we know. The innards, the inside of this piece of the wreckage, right, is kind of a honeycombed shape, which fits with a plane. And there's words stenciled on it that are readable still that say "no step" in all caps.
Oh.
Which have you looked out of the window of a plane before?
Yeah.
You'll see on the parts of the wings, you'll see the words "no step." Sometimes they want people not to
step on the wings.
Exactly, don't step on these wings.
Yeah.
It's very true.
I don't think I've ever noticed that.
I actually have noticed that.
How funny.
I feel like I've seen it.
Yeah.
The no step.
Yeah.
No step, no dancing.
Yeah. So even though it said no step, Gibson's not sure that it's from a plane or not. So he takes it in and has it checked by experts, I guess, and he finds out that the scrap is part of a horizontal stabilizer panel,
What?
and it's from a Boeing 777. Not just that, it's almost certainly from the Flight 370 Boeing 777. Remember, it's a very specific type
Yeah.
of
Okay.
Boeing 777. So
I mean, have there been a whole lot of Boeing
Exactly,
777s
exactly.
fallen into
It's
the ocean where,
virtually certain this is a
Yeah.
piece of the wreckage.
yeah.
So Gibson turns this debris over to the Australian consul on Mozambique, and then he flies back to Kuala Lumpur for the second anniversary memorial of Flight 370 in March of 2016.
He's a nice person. He
Yes.
wants to give them support.
Yeah, he did. He became very connected with these folks, and they actually came to think him not kind of one of them, but almost
Yeah.
someone who was helping them.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, honestly, he's made pretty good progress.
has.
More than the Malaysian government sure
Oh,
fucking
God,
has.
yeah.
is he genuinely a good guy?
I think he is,
Not
yeah,
just
despite the fedora.
like a publicity hound or
I don't know,
mean-
not at all. Not at all. I don't think he is.
In
He's
this
Okay.
case.
he may be a little paranoid, but we'll talk about later. He actually has some death threats.
Oh.
Ooh.
So
From who?
from
Oh.
assholes. So
Oh.
That's weird.
we'll talk
but
about that when
sure.
we get to conspiracies. In June of 2016, Blaine Gibson decides he is going to cover the other most likely landing spot. We remember Madagascar.
Right.
It's the land of lemurs and phoses.
Okay.
It's on my bucket list. I'm going to go there.
He just is recounting the movie Madagascar.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm doing at this
Yeah.
point. Yes, I am. And apparently also hippos and lions and
A zebra.
a zebra.
One
Yes,
zebra.
One zebra. One of each. One of those things. Mostly lemurs and phoses. Specifically, the experts had told him that, hey, maybe you might want to check out the northeast coast of Madagascar. That's worth a look. So that's where he goes. Here, too, he finds what he's searching for. He finds almost immediately 3 pieces from Flight 370 on the very first day, and then 2 more a few days later. Now, again, I don't think he's like, walking the beach with a metal thing. He's asking around, and he lets it be known, I'll pay for debris that might be from an airplane.
Yeah.
I see. He probably should have gone to Madagascar first.
He probably should have. Because Madagascar is between Reunion
Yeah.
and essentially the rain shadow of Madagascar would block a big chunk of Mozambique from debris. It's going to hit Madagascar, and Madagascar is a huge island, especially north to south, is much longer than it is wide, and so Madagascar is probably a better place to go than Mozambique. But he winds up in Madagascar.
He wanted to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so he finds a lot of wreckage early on, and again, word got around that he'll pay American dollars for any piece of what might be plane debris. So people come to him and give him,
Yeah.
says, "Is this it?" And he says, "Here's $20. I don't know."
People going to start ripping the fender off their car and going, "Hey, pay me."
I'm sure they did. Look at this. That's a coin. So eventually he would accumulate dozens of pieces of what he believed was that ill-fated plane. I don't think all of them were, but he
Yeah.
found a lot that were. Earlier, by the way, in December 2015, so before he found these pieces, a man named Leon Lotter had found some debris in southern Mozambique. That's on the African mainland, remember? He didn't know what it was, though. He didn't know what to think of it. But it was later, March 2016, when Gibson started doing his searches there in northern Mozambique, and Liam Lotter had read about this and goes, oh, well, this might be something too. So he turned it into the authorities there, and it turned out to be another piece of a stabilizer from the wing of almost certainly Flight 370's Boeing. So, and later, by the way, more pieces were found off Tanzania and again in Madagascar. So they found quite a bit. I never got an exact number, but we have lots of pieces
Yeah.
from Flight 370. I heard I was watching something, I can't remember what it was, and this guy keep on citing 3 pieces. That's utter
3?
nonsense. As far as dozens of pieces that were almost certainly from Flight 370,
Yeah.
unless want to be a dick about it. So, which I think he does. So ultimately, though, if you think about it, these efforts were a kind of failure because remember, the intent was to say, okay, here's where they landed. Let's backtrack and figure out exactly, with pretty fair precision, where the plane would have gone down. So he's giving all this data. He's turning every time he finds something, he says what it is, where he found it, when he found it, and turns it back to scientists in Australia. But it turns out there's just too much ocean and too many variables. Like, for instance, the flaperon, that may have gotten to where it was because it had a part of it that could be at the surface and form something like a sail, and it could have gone faster than other debris. That's maybe
Yeah.
why it was found
Right.
first. But it's just too much. So they were never able to use all this data that he collected effectively and pinpoint it at all. But they did prove that the initial analysis of the signals, remember, from the satellites had been correct on 2 critical things. Flight 370 had crashed into the southern Indian Ocean, like that data indicated, and it had done so at full speed because the debris was shattered. So there wasn't any kind of an attempted emergency landing from someone at the controls. It was clear there was no one, either able or willing to try to control the plane when it went into the water.
Right. So all of these found pieces were pretty small then.
The 6 foot there was 6 foot flaperon. There's a 2 foot triangular piece. So there were some. Others were much smaller than that, but there were some
Okay.
decent sized pieces. Yes, but still, I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
This is an airplane.
Yeah.
and
6
the
feet ain't
biggest piece,
nothing.
the biggest piece found was 6 foot.
Yeah.
On
okay.
a 230 some
on the back
passenger?
of the wing too.
Right.
By the way.
Yeah.
So now we're going to turn to what the hell happened.
Yeah.
First, let's start with the most realistic possibilities, okay? Tons of theories have been thrown out. Lightning strikes,
Whoa.
birds in the engine, some kind of computer glitch that caused this cascading failure of systems. Some people said ice could have done it, ash in the engine. Birds, by the way, birds in the engine, like knocked out the engines or something like that. All these...
How does any of that explain the weird behavior?
They're
though?
it doesn't. They're trying to explain what caused it to
Like a
be in
non-human
trouble. Yes, exactly.
explanation.
Yeah.
And of course, there is human explanations too. There's bombs and fire and hijacking too.
Sure.
There's
That's-
sudden decompression.
yeah.
There's all kinds of. This is. Lots of things have been thrown out there in terms of what could have caused the plane to be under duress or the plane to go down.
Because
right?
the first thing you have to explain is why it turned around
Correct.
and went
100%.
someplace else.
Well, apparently, a lot of folks don't try to.
Yeah, that's
Or
my
they,
biggest
if they
question.
do, they have tortured reasoning. Well,
Yeah.
So
because there's lots of things that could cause a plane to crash.
Exactly.
The
Ding
ice
dong.
and the birds and all that kind of stuff. But that doesn't explain it
Ding dong, mama.
going off course.
Ding.
Okay.
dog.
That's the point of this part of the episode.
Yes, it really kind of is. So many theories naturally focus then on some kind of unnatural intervention, like a hijacking. But first, one of the kind of the sexy theories was that someone had taken over the plane by remote control.
What?
From outside the cockpit. Now that sounds crazy, and if you think don't think of the person flying the plane over
Like
the
a
river
drone.
like a drone or
Yeah.
something like that. Not that. There is a space under the floor at the galley, so behind the cockpit, that's accessible. You can pull it up. There's a panel, and you can get down into this space. It's called the electrical equipment bay. And there is a way. Some people have theorized that someone, like say hijackers took over and they couldn't get into the cockpit, and so they got into the electrical equipment bay and then sort of overrode pilot controls by controlling it through there. Unfortunately, for movie thrillers, this for sure did not happen. The flight path that was discerned from the satellite and other evidence showed that the person controlling the plane did a variety of actions that were just not possible to have done from that bay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They don't have that level of control.
Yeah, I was gonna say like an almost 180-degree
Exactly.
U-turn and then another turn and then just going as far as you can.
That's the first thing. That initial sharp turn to the southwest, it was so abrupt and so tight, it absolutely impossible to have been done anywhere but from the cockpit.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, that abrupt turn was also impossible to do in autopilot, which means the autopilot was turned off before that occurred.
Yeah.
Keep that in the back of
Which-
your mind.
That's just logical too.
It is,
I mean,
but it's important. A variation on the remote control takeover is a more mundane kind of just hijacking. You know, the normal one. You get into the cockpit, you put a gun to their head kind
Yeah.
of thing.
How
Yeah.
mundane.
Well, it is. Compared to remote controlling from the bay, that's pretty. That's a
Yes.
great. That'd make a
Yeah.
great movie.
Yeah, it would.
Like the pilot's like, "What the hell's happening? I'm out of control." That'd be
There are
phenomenal.
snakes
Yeah.
in the
There
electrical
could be some
equipment
snakes.
bay.
Could be some snakes.
but then a concern could be like some kind of computer hacking where somebody
Yeah.
could
Yes.
via remotely hack into the
The mainframe.
Like
or the
people will-
autopilot programming
Yeah.
or something
Yeah.
like that.
like
Electrical
people will be
systems.
doing to Tesla's automatic cars in the not too distant future.
Well,
I
I'm
have no doubt.
Something like that.
assuming there are safeguards.
Are there? Carrie, there are also really good hackers out there.
I'm not talking about Tesla. I'm
Have you
talking
met
about
Mr. Roboto?
I'm talking about Boeing's. I got a few
Okay.
phone calls to make.
You do. Okay. She's calling him Mr. Boeing.
I
Can
got
someone-
a Boeing contactor too.
You do. You do. Well,
Who probably
well,
know
yeah.
nothing about it.
No, they don't.
Security
One,
detail.
one is in quasi IT, and by the way, you don't like him. And the other is
not
in
him.
the other is in purchasing. So good luck
Well,
with that.
he might know what he's purchasing.
Okay, all right. I don't think he does. It's more about getting tickets to Laker games. Anyway, this is I'm kidding about that, but he'd never do something like that.
Allegedly. All of it.
Allegedly. You know, the hijacking, the more mundane hijacking is not impossible. That could have been what
Honestly,
happened.
Yeah.
If we Occam's razor. it.
Yes, but there's just a ton of common sense problems with this story. Like, for instance, if it was hijackers, what were they doing? What was their
Yeah.
reason? What was
was the
their
goal?
end here?
Yeah.
There was no claims of responsibility. No, why would you hijack something you're not going to do something with it or claim
Yeah.
responsibility?
They usually don't keep it a secret.
They do not. Quite the opposite.
That's true. And they usually like to claim
Yeah.
their actions.
And they didn't gain anything. One of the early things was that they, stole the plane. We'll get into that in conspiracy in a minute,
Well-
but we know for a fact they didn't steal the
Right.
goddamn plane because we have lots and lots of debris.
Yeah.
from
I
it.
mean, one could argue that it started out as a normal hijacking and then things went awry.
Yeah, that's possible.
They
That's a
lost
possibility.
control and crashed into the ocean.
Or the pilot crashed on purpose
Yeah.
to not let
That's
the.
true.
Well,
I
the
mean,
pilot left in places
Well-
when it ran out of fuel, though, because
Yeah.
for sure it went pretty
Yeah.
much the exact amount of time and speed it would have run out of fuel. So.
Yeah.
And so what is the hijacker doing there? Knocking on the door
Yeah.
until and that makes no sense. When the pilot making no effort whatsoever to contact anyone.
Correct, yeah.
makes
Maybe
no
they
sense.
miscalculated or something.
Maybe. But this is the
Just
whole
saying.
idea of the scenario itself doesn't make sense in terms of hijacking, but there's even worse
Yeah.
reasons. There's even other reasons it was not a hijacking. Remember, this is post 9/11.
Yeah.
This is when a hijacker getting into a cockpit is very,
Very hard,
very,
yeah.
very difficult. And he'd have to kill or incapacitate both the pilot and co-pilot very, very, very quickly. Not only is it really secure, the cockpit, but there's a live video feed right outside showing exactly the door. All pilots can see. If they
Right.
see someone doing anything, they know right away. And
Yeah.
all it takes is mayday, mayday, someone's trying to, so you'd have to do it instantaneously without them noticing on the video feed and then
Right.
go into the cockpit and get them in control before they can even literally go mayday once.
Yeah.
So it makes no sense. If hijackers did get in unnoticed, even say they did, say they got in unnoticed and they got in and they got guns to their head before the pilots could say anything. There was actually a lot of ways. The pilots have these, on their fingertips as they're flying the plane. There's ways they could flick things and signal something's amiss, and they never did.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting.
Safety.
Also, by the way, the timing is difficult as for this theory as well. So think about it. Remember, it was about less than 2 minutes from when Zahari, the pilot, the senior pilot, he said goodnight to Kuala Lumpur, the air traffic controller, and then less than 2 minutes later, they make that sharp U-turn.
Yeah.
So I know it's trouble had to start in those 2 minutes after he made that radio call and before he made the U-turn, because it had to be the hijackers saying, turn this plane around, we're going to Cuba.
Yeah.
So
Cuba.
That's where all hijacked planes go to eventually. So
Sure.
This, again, though, was also the perfect time for an intentional, not be found and not be detected kind of thing. Because remember, this is the handoff from Malaysia to Vietnam, and it actually did work out perfectly.
Yeah.
That they didn't realize the plane was missing for some time. Now, so it strains credulity to think the hijackers would have known this and timed it perfectly.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not likely.
Oh, I have a theory.
Yeah.
Oh.
Maybe the hijackers had already gotten in before that.
Oh, okay. I like that.
I was thinking.
And we're forcing, we're
Gun to the head.
making sure they didn't because flight attendants.
What about them?
One of the flight attendants was actually a hijacker.
In on
Inside job,
it.
Care.
That's how they were able to get in. And the pilots wouldn't contact anybody because this is a flight attendant, right? They come in, they bring us a Coke or coffee. And
Yeah, go on.
that's why he said something odd. That's
said the
why
goodnight?
He said the good night, we're leaving you. Because they don't do that, right?
I love it. I
Yeah.
love
and
it.
Malaysia didn't catch on
Didn't
to
pick
his
up
signal.
on his signal. It was the
I think I just
verbal
solved it.
version of blinking twice
That's-
in Morse code or something.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's kind of what I thought too. I was like, when you said good night earlier, I was like, that's fishy. There's something there.
Did they
Don't trust it.
investigate all the flight attendants?
They did, actually.
okay.
They investigated everybody on the plane.
And the pilots,
Pilots,
I'm sure, yeah.
passengers, flight attendants, and the Malaysian government at least found absolutely nothing wrong with their
Well,
backgrounds
you
whatsoever.
don't trust them.
Well, I know, but
At the time, are they better now?
No.
Never mind. We'll
a little
move on.
bit
Move on.
maybe. The president of the time is no longer their leader, but
Oh, okay. Not
So,
saying.
but they found no red flags whatsoever in any crew or passengers at all. Well, almost none on the passengers. It turns out that 2 of the passengers were flying under false passports.
Oh, that's sus.
It's very suspicious. And you know what else was suspicious to people at the time? Those 2 people flying under false passports
Where were they
were from
America. Oh.
Australia.
why is that suspicious?
China.
What's
I'm
a
kidding.
country that would be very suspicious?
Oh,
to some-
Indonesia.
No, Iran.
Iran. Oh,
You know,
I
you
see what
think
you mean. Culturally,
state sponsor of
because
terrorism, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
because of racism.
Yes, a little bit.
Not
so,
a little bit.
well, they were from Iran, and they had like I forget, it was like one was like a Dutch passport, and one was something else, European.
Yeah.
So that was
be
that.
from there.
That got some people freaked out at the time, and thinking, okay, these guys took over the plane somehow. But further investigation showed that they were actually asylum seekers.
Yeah, I
And
was
they were
going to
trying
say.
to get to Germany to seek asylum.
I was going to say China probably wasn't their best bet. The plane was going to China.
Yeah, the plane was going to China, and then why not?
For asylum?
To seek asylum.
Oh no, they weren't. Yeah, no, they're just going to.
I
They're,
was
I'm sorry,
exactly
they're going to
what you
China
said.
to then travel from there, and so basically every investigating group, not just Malaysia but the U.S. too, and looked into their background and
Yeah.
found that no one thinks they're terrorists.
I like
Yeah.
my theory, though. That's a good one.
It's a solid
I-
theory, Kara. It's a solid theory.
I agree. I got agrees.
A more popular theory, though, is some kind of more natural crew incapacitation.
Huh.
So, like
Natural.
Oh, I see
like
what you
hypoxia,
mean.
lack of oxygen, somehow
Of the pilots?
of the pilots. The pilots were incapacitated somehow in a natural way. The most obvious one being hypoxia.
Yeah.
They ran out of oxygen somehow. For some reason, they weren't getting oxygen. This theory, by the way, is favored by some of the officials on the Malaysian investigative team. Just this idea that something happened to the flight crew and the plane essentially was left on autopilot until it finally spiraled into the Indian Ocean.
But again, it would have kept going to China.
Just bear with me for a second, please.
Did they put it? I mean, wouldn't they have had to put it on on autopilot after that big U-turn? Because you said that was impossible to
They
do
would have to
on
put it back on
autopilot.
autopilot, yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
And then-
no, let's just say this. This has happened before. On August 14th, 2005, Flight 522 of Helios Airline took off from the island of Cyprus, heading for Prague in the Czech Republic. A low pressure alarm sounded about 5 minutes into the flight. So when this happened, air masks came down for all the passengers, right?
Nightmare.
Yeah.
The two pilots, though, did not notice the alarm for some reason, and their masks do not come down automatically.
Well,
They have to
that's
physically,
a
manually
flaw.
go get
They have oxygen. They have actually a much more secure, independent supply of oxygen that's not reliant on the plane that lasts a lot longer than the crew does for obvious reasons. But they didn't hear the alarm, so they didn't put on their masks.
Oh my Lord.
That's interesting. I wonder why.
So it turned out it was a leak. They had repaired like the window or the cockpit door or something like that wrong, and so air was escaping, and they didn't realize it. It was slow enough to where they didn't realize it. They didn't hear the alarm for some reason. They didn't put on any masks, and they started having hypoxia, which can make you loopy and almost like you're shit-faced drunk. And so they started talking to the air traffic control because they knew something was wrong.
Yeah.
But what they were saying was incomprehensible. It's like they couldn't be understood.
Oh,
Let's go ahead and
So-
like that, like Serene
Ma'am,
Branson.
facing the man passage.
A very Darrison.
What did this
bit
person say?
Darrison.
A heavy rotation.
Yes.
A heavy rotation. So, air traffic control sent up two F-16 fighters, thinking they've been hijacked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Possibly. So the fighters get there, and it's on autopilot. It sort of kicked into autopilot right when they were not on the controls, which can happen.
Yeah.
And so
Like a safeguard.
Yeah, it is a safeguard. And so the F-16 pilots catch up with it and fly next to it, and they look in the cockpit and they see one of the
shit.
pilots is passed out on the floor and the co-pilot is slumped on the dashboard. It's not, I know it's called a dashboard. Clearly both unconscious.
Oh, no.
So they realize something's happened to them both. There's not a damn thing they can do about it. So I guess flight attendant realizing what's happening, desperately tries to break into the cockpit.
Oh.
She does.
Work,
I guess
bitch.
passengers, people are able to break into the cockpit door, but then when she gets inside, she tries to contact air traffic control, like, how do I fly a plane kind of thing.
Because they'll walk you through it.
They will walk you through it, but it's too late. It smashed into a mountain.
Oh my
Ooh.
God.
And
That's terrifying.
All 120 people on board died.
Rest in peace, you guys.
So this kind of thing has happened, this hypoxia kind of a scenario, but it doesn't fit the facts of
You
flight.
just ruined Mom's day. I'm sorry.
Why?
Look how
awful.
sad she is
She
now.
does look sad. I'm sorry.
This is when you want planes to be able to be flown via remote control.
Not be a remote control, but maybe
Well-
like avoid that mountain. Seriously. But autopilot it does amazing things. It senses there's a mountain ahead.
Yeah.
I won't fly into that mountain. I'll go up. Down.
Yeah.
I guess they don't want to do
Yeah.
that because if it's not well, there's air traffic around it and you don't want to fly into a plane because
Yeah.
you're avoiding a mountain. But computers can do that too. One day it'll be all computerized.
I agree.
Or it'll be
Yeah.
done by a person on the ground, not in the plane.
Yeah.
So, for instance, the terrible, terrible damage shown by the debris could indicate that there was no one in control but before impact, which would fit this hypoxia theory, right?
370?
Yeah, in
Yeah.
Flight 370, right? So back to Flight 370, the damage done shown by the debris does kind of fit this idea that no one was at the controls. But what's the biggest problem with this one, with this idea?
That it had to have been put on autopilot after it turned around.
Yes, and the whole flight path.
Yeah.
That it did multiple unexplained
Turns.
alterations to its
Yeah.
what flight path. That's lethal to that theory.
Yeah.
Clearly, because that U-turn was an abnormal act. So whatever was happened shortly before that U-turn. If it just then went in that direction forever, okay, but it didn't.
Right.
It made multiple turns again.
Yeah.
Well,
So. We'll touch more on this later, by the way, this theory in a minute.
yeah, because I
it's-
can think of an explanation.
well, I have much more holes for that. It seems clear that something nefarious, though, was going on, was underway before it made that last turn south into the Indian Ocean. It had
I
made multiple
agree.
turns before that and did so in some very strange ways.
because
So,
good night.
obviously, yeah. So it was something done by conscious human hands. They're not incapacitated. Both
Right.
pilots aren't out of oxygen.
Yeah.
So other people say, what about something in the cargo? Could the cargo have caused?
Like a bomb?
Either a bomb or, in this case, people pointed specifically to lithium-ion batteries.
Oh.
Yeah.
Those are those things that power cell phones, walkie-talkies,
Yes.
things like that.
Many things.
The plane did have 487 pounds, 221 kilograms.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. It was in 2 large pallets, but they're separated into 2 pallets to the aft and the fore of the plane. But still, those things can be really dangerous. They can heat up to crazy hot heat. Hot heat? Sure,
Yeah.
I'll go with that.
Hot
Yeah.
heat.
And they have actually caused fires on
caused
cargo
fires.
planes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when that damn Samsung phone started exploding, those
Yeah.
were lithium-ion batteries.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that would entail somebody getting on the radio
Yes, it
and
would.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, it
calling somebody for her.
Yeah, the same problems with the hypoxia thing apply to that in my
Yeah.
mind. So it doesn't jibe with there being a sudden fire
Yeah.
and explosion.
Yeah.
Somebody would know. And also, here's a question I've always kind of had. How come none of the passengers videoed anything?
You know, I have our
Or
cell phone.
said anything? Because, like, this
Texted.
was in the time
Yeah.
where we definitely had that capability.
My guess. Well,
It was
well,
a
actually,
red eye.
we'll talk about that later. Actually,
That's true. But
talk
I mean,
about-
still, in the event of a major catastrophe, that's probably what I would do. But
they
I don't know.
prob-
There's explanations.
There's a
I'm sure.
really
They
good
may
reason
not
for that.
have known initially.
Yes.
Do you think passengers
When they
would
made the
know
U-turn?
we turned around?
Oh,
Yeah,
no, not then.
No,
But
Yeah.
no. There's like,
Once you-
what's happening? At worst case, scenario.
Yeah.
They think, how are we going back? What's happening? If
Yeah.
they're even awake.
Yeah.
So
eventually, though.
Yeah.
But there actually is a really good reason why
Oh, I'm excited.
nothing came from the passengers. So
Oh,
there's not just these explanations grounded in some kind of a fact, like we've just talked about. There's for every plausible possibility, there are probably 10 conspiracy theories. So I'll talk about it for a minute. First of all, there's some sightings. There are tons of sightings of supposed Flight 370.
Of course there are.
So, like there's a very low flying plane seen by some men fishing off the coast of Kota Baru. An oil rig worker in the ocean almost 300 kilometers southeast of Vung Tau saw a, quote, burning object. And some people on a beach on an island in the Maldives called Kuta Huvadu, great name, by the way, saw something they thought also was Flight 370. That last item, at least, it's, I don't know, semi-interesting because it was in the Indian Ocean, but it was way, way, way far from where the almost certain flight path was, so it's almost certainly bullshit. The other two, Kota Baru is on Malaysia, and Vung Tau is off Vietnam. So those, they're nonsense.
Yeah, that
we know
would
the plane
make
was
sense.
nowhere near those places when it went down, or when it was, even when it was in trouble, if it was in trouble. And by the way, many of these sightings were never even reported contemporaneously. They were reported weeks or months later.
Of course, yeah.
And I mean, as we know from past episodes, eyewitness reports, even made in real time, are suspect. But eyewitness reports declared months or weeks after are worse than useless.
yeah. And then especially when there's evidence, physical evidence
Yeah.
that they're kind of impossible.
Yeah, it's
Sorry,
just-
y'all.
But theories of these kind get even weirder. One, tarot reading English psychic.
Oh,
She actually was out sailing along the southern Asian coast when this happened with her husband, and she claimed that when they're out there in the ocean, they saw what they thought was a cruise missile, and it was coming at them. They were in the Andaman Sea, right?
Okay.
So as it drew near, though, she realized, wait, that's not a cruise missile. It's an airplane, but it has this odd glow around it, like an aura.
oh,
Not
It's an
aura.
orange aura.
Like flames.
No, like a mystical kind of
Okay,
aura, kind of a
okay.
thing. And it's trailing smoke, so something's wrong. So for some reason, that told this witness that the plane was on a suicide mission, and it was directed at Chinese ships, which were on to the west of her in the Andaman Ocean, conducting maneuvers at the time.
And
So
did she immediately get on the horn and call some authorities?
No, she
Or-
did not.
She waited months.
A few days later, she got into
Oh,
port,
yes.
and she says, that's the only time I found out this whole flight MH370 thing. It wasn't until then I even knew about it. I swear to God.
So you saw something potentially horrible happening.
Yeah.
You don't take one
no.
step to try to prevent loss of life or okay.
No, but you do tell a newspaper later on about it. And by the way, you do blog about it under the name Saucy Sailoress. So
I will give her that
quality.
one.
Yeah, no, she's good at that. That's so
a
all we
good
have
name.
is her name and her blog name. I'm sorry,
find
all
it.
we have is her word that any of this ever happened,
Right.
and of course her blog name of Saucy Sailoress, which adds instant credibility.
Well,
Oh,
she was with her
absolutely.
husband, right?
Yes,
You
I
can't
think
lie on a
him
blog.
too.
Does he
But is he a
corroborate her
psychic? Does he
story?
read tarot? Did he see the aura? I doubt it.
Well,
He hasn't opened his third eye yet.
Yeah, he's got to do that.
That's why
but
they were
he'd-
sailing.
He'd see the plane.
He
even if
would.
He couldn't
He
see
would.
the aura.
Yeah.
So he didn't know its intention.
Nah, he didn't know. He couldn't read intent from the act of it coming toward you. So there are more. Some guy in New York named Jeff Wise. This got a lot of play too at the time. He started writing about how the data were faked. The satellite pings, that stuff, those were all fake, big part of conspiracy, and that actually the plane did not turn south into the Indian Ocean. It turned north and went to Kazakhstan.
What?
Oh, okay.
Some kind of Russian plot. He can't be that specific. It's a little vague scenario, but that was his kind of, and it got a shocking amount of play and attention at the time.
So Putin did it.
Putin, yes.
Did he have any evidence for thinking
He doesn't need evidence. He says that I think he did like do some quasi, it sounds like he technically knows what he's talking about,
Pseudoscience.
kind of thing with the satellite pings, but he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing.
Yeah.
So there's a French journalist named Florence de Changy, who was actually a fairly respectable journalist at the time. She had written for the Le Monde and other, reputable media sources. She wrote a book that was published in 2016 about the flight and her investigation of Flight 370. She argued that it didn't go down the Indian Ocean. It really did crash into the South China Sea, where people were originally thought it did. She says that, look, hey, there were no radar pings from anywhere along the Indian Ocean of this plane. That's crazy. And also, guess what? There really were military maneuvers by the Chinese in the Andaman Sea at the time. And so there, basically, it's like, I mean, that's kind of her biggest part of her argument, that and supposed eyewitnesses I'll talk about in a minute. But the answer to the first question is no shit. This is one of the most isolated parts of the world. So yeah, there weren't a lot of radar pings in there. I mean, the radar isn't that expansive. And in terms of the maneuvers, so what? So wait, there's never been jet passengers have never flown near military maneuvers. Happens every day. So she's just, that's not a real strong part. So she just sort of wishes away things like the satellite data, the debris. She says essentially her argument is the official version, right, was all a quote decoy, and the meaning of this was to distract from what, you ask? It turns out that actually the United States shot down Flight 370 because it was carrying secret cargo to China, and they could not allow that to happen. And they found this out after the plane took off. Within an hour of it making its U-turn is when the Americans found this out, sent fighters up there to communicate with him and say, you better turn the plane around. If you won't, we'll kill you. We'll shoot you down. And so they shot him down, and it landed in the South China Sea. Everything else after that is fiction. It's part of this cover story. And that's the cover story you'd concoct, right?
Yeah.
Shot down, this tortuous. It took months and months and months to come out. Tons of independent people investigating it to come to the conclusion of the actual official story. That's what you manipulated all of those people.
But also, they said it was in the South China Sea at first.
They did indeed.
too.
So why would you concoct that? I know. Well, yeah, sense is not her strong suit. So
Girl,
you had
Florence.
fake satellite data. You had to plant dozens or hundreds of pieces of debris and plant them on shores that, by the way, people were not even looking for them until they started being found. And by the way, the hundreds or at least dozens, if not hundreds of people that would have to be part of the conspiracy, not one, even anonymously, has ever come forward and talked about it.
That part, I'd write a tell-all immediately.
Yeah. Her story is a tour de farce.
Shut the fuck up. Yeah. You gotta go. You have to leave.
Did you put that in your Amazon review?
I did not review her book.
No.
It's implausibility and these unconvincing inventions that she makes up. It's an embarrassing way to sell books, but that's what she was doing, and she did. She, by the way, she does cite all those eyewitness testimonies and those seeing those whatever, low flying planes or burning planes or something like that. But think about it. This would have happened in one spot, right? If you did see the plane going down, it would have happened in one spot.
Yeah.
Those sightings have been all over that part of the globe.
Yeah.
So all of them have to be mistakes, except for at most one area. Those from one area. So the obvious conclusion is no, they're all
Yeah.
mistakes are more likely fakes.
But also, what'd we do? Shoot the plane down, then scoop it up real quick so
Yes.
nobody could find it?
Right.
I mean,
That's true. Yes.
That would not be easy
You'd
at
have
all.
to.
No,
And,
yeah.
and none of that debris ever washed up on the
Exactly.
shores of Thailand and Vietnam or wherever.
In a foreign country.
Yeah.
No, we scooped it up and we moved
All of it.
it so
Every-
it would
Yes.
land in Madagascar.
Dropped it
and
in southern Indian
Africa.
Ocean. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. So,
We're
I mean,
good.
her evidence, citing especially the eyewitness evidence, citing that is kind of like saying, we think Elvis Presley's alive because even though we have his body right,
Right.
here, these people have seen him in a diner with a fake mustache
In the
on.
Cayman
Yeah.
Islands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
With
it's
Tupac and
it's
Michael Jackson.
pretty embarrassing. By the way, the debris, which is such a damaging item, is damaging evidence to the conspiracy theorist. Those conspiracy theorists hate that. So many have attacked Blaine Gibson for finding that debris.
Yeah.
And that's where he's gotten death threats from. They've called him a fraud. He's just hurting the families because,
Oh my God.
they care about those families
Yeah.
in making death threats on Blaine Gibson.
But how does finding debris hurt the families?
Because he's complicit
he's-
in the cover
Yeah,
up.
it's part of the official story, man. You're just covering up for the man. That kind of bullshit.
Gotcha.
These are horrible people. So there's others. One Australian amateur, he claimed that he was scanning Google Earth images one night
That's fun, though.
alone in his basement, I assume.
People have solved murders like that. Don't-
He thinks he spotted the plane,
Oh.
but he won't
Not
tell us where it is. He
What?
he's trying to raise money to do an expedition to go out there and find it. So
No.
until he gets that money, he's not going to tell us what he found.
Bullshit.
What's his GoFundMe
I have no idea.
goal?
I have
$2
no idea.
billion. I mean, Jesus
That's
Christ.
some bullshit. If you really cared about finding the plane, you would say it immediately so anybody
you
with
would.
the already resources could go
Yes.
and get it, you stupid bitch.
The plane has also been found
man.
found in quotes in the rainforest of Cambodia, in a
Yeah.
river in Indonesia, and some people think it was lost in a black hole, and some people think it was
Yeah.
lost in a time warp.
I was going to say time slip.
That's my favorite
Time
one.
slip, time warp. Yeah, I do. I like the time warp.
Wormholes, baby.
I mean,
or big sinkhole and
big sinkhole. A
in the
sinkhole
sky?
in the ocean or the sky.
well, you never know. I don't know.
You're just
There
going to go
could
with either
be-
one? Okay.
Maybe a big
I like
sinkhole could-
Carrie's optimism. You know what? I don't have to explain that. Sinkholes
maybe it
on
could-
land as
maybe
well.
I know, but maybe it could suck everything down in there.
You know?
You know
Black
what?
hole in the sinkhole.
There have been people theorize about the Bermuda Triangle that
What?
it is some kind of a force that pulls planes
Yeah.
down into the water.
There
like
you go.
Charybdis.
Don't know what that means. Oh, you mean
From
that
the
can't
Greek-
pull planes down?
It
That's just
may-
a whirlpool.
But there were no planes back then to know.
Oh, okay, but there are now. People have flown over it. Tourists think fly over them.
And those planes have gone down.
Oh, okay. I think there's video of it.
No.
Okay. All right.
Show it to me.
I don't know. Also, aliens have been alleged to have captured the ship. Obviously,
But first they made it take a little detour.
yes, they
Uh-huh.
did. They did.
They wanted to take a tour of the
Yeah,
Indian Ocean
yeah.
They're
first.
messing with it for a little while. Some have said that the North Koreans captured the plane somehow. I don't know, because they want to take it back to North Korea and reverse engineer it because they didn't have cool planes. Because that's how you do it.
Yeah.
And of course, there's people who say Putin had something to do with it. The Russians had something to do with
Of
it, and they
course.
took it to Kazakhstan.
Because the Red Scares.
Well,
pretty much the
no,
whole thing.
actually, one of they say that Putin did that was to avenge the recently imposed U.S. sanctions on Russia. So yes, you steal a Malaysian airplane to get back at the U.S.
With
Yeah.
how many American nationals on it? Like two?
two or three. So smart thinking, conspiracy theorists. That's good. There was even a rumor that the entire plane was captured to provide the raw material for a massive organ harvesting ring
Oh,
that was
yeah.
led by a
What is
top
this?
Chinese official's son. So they hijacked the plane and they landed it in, take your pick, it could have been North Korea again, Somalia, Kazakhstan, wherever.
Why didn't they just let it come to China?
You just don't question it,
If
Gary.
it was the Chinese
Don't
doing
question
it,
it, Dora.
let it land.
Well, they couldn't. They had
And
to
then
take
do
it
it.
somewhere
Yeah.
else, somewhere secret, somewhere crazy. They had Confederates on the ground there, and then they killed everyone and took their delicious eyeballs and livers and hearts and lungs and things
All
like that.
right.
Okay.
That's a theory.
Makes total sense to me.
Obviously, for every conspiracy theory to work, you have to ignore evidence, science, logic, and honesty, and just shunt them aside. And any fact has to be ignored or twisted, which is true of the bulk
Yeah.
of conspiracy theories, but
Honestly,
particularly
yeah.
this one, though, because we do have a high level of certainty on where Flight 370 went and where it went, in, roughly where it went into the water. So
'Cause of them
really,
satellites?
yeah, you really have to ignore really good hard science
Yeah.
for any of these conspiracy theories
Well,
to work.
And this podcast loves science, bitch.
Mm-hmm.
So
But we also know how good people are at ignoring good hard science.
that's
so.
true.
very
In
true.
this pandemic.
Yep.
So, what is the most likely solution? What did really happen? Officially,
Time slip.
maybe. The final Malaysian report found that the crew had nothing to do with the disappearance of Flight 370. Malaysia was ruled by a corrupt quasi-dictator named Najib Razak, R-A-Z-A-K at the time. So, as I mentioned earlier, people who made trouble were being arrested. They're even being disappeared. Everyone in Malaysia was looking into the case. The last thing they wanted to find was anything that made the country look bad, and anything found to be the fault of the airline or the airline personnel. You can tell where I'm going.
Yeah.
Was seen as something they did not want to go there. They wanted to avoid that. So the Malaysian investigation was kind of a sham from the start. So here's a quote from the article in The Atlantic by William Langweish. He says, quote, "A close observer of the MH370 process," that is the investigation process, said, quote, "It became clear that the primary objective of the Malaysians was to make the subject just go away. From the start, there was this instinctive bias against being open and transparent, not because they were hiding some deep, dark secret, but because they did not know where the truth really lay. And they were afraid that something might come out that would be embarrassing. Were they covering up?
Yeah.
Yes, but they were covering up for the unknown," end quote.
Let sleeping beasts lie
Yes,
kind of thing.
exactly. So the other dominant theory I haven't talked about is pilot suicide.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Using an airplane as a suicide weapon has been done before.
Oh, yeah, well, yes.
The most famous, I guess, somewhat recent time was a German pilot in 2015. He flew his Airbus into the French Alps.
Yeah.
About a year after Flight 370 disappeared.
I remember that.
Remember, and the
Vaguely,
later
too.
investigation found that he had been depressed, was suicidal, has some mental health issues, and he had even studied the Flight MH370 case.
Eek.
So in his mind, he thought it was pilot
Suicide,
suicide.
yeah.
And it's happened several times since the 1990s. So it's not unheard of at all, sadly, and terrifyingly. So
and not like a suicide terrorist attack. Like
yeah,
one
I'm
man
committing suicide.
trying to- yeah.
I'm a pilot. Here's how I'm going to do it.
Right.
Which is
Yeah.
really shitty. Let
Yeah,
me
it
take
is-
hundreds
it's
of
not
people
good.
with me.
It's not a good call, pilots. The Malaysians
I mean,
looked in.
suicide is never a good call. Let's be clear.
That's true.
but it's
That's
extra
true.
not a good call when you take others with you.
That's absolutely true.
Official stance of the Weird World podcast.
That's
Yes.
it is. I
Yeah.
concur. The Malaysians looked into the co-pilot, his life. They found no, and others did too, by the way. They found no signs at all of trouble in the life of Farid Hamid. Quite the opposite.
Yeah. He was
the young guy, right?
He
Yeah.
was young. He had this
Yeah.
prestigious job. He was looking forward to a good life. He lacked any red flags.
People
Yeah.
always say though, he hides them well.
Yeah.
People always say that.
Well, but also mental health issues don't always depend on your situation in
That's
life.
true.
So
That's true. But this lack of red flags was not so true for Captain Zahari.
Uh-oh.
His life was really loaded with red flags that the Malaysians, I mean, strategically ignored. It certainly
Yeah.
that seems to be the obvious conclusion. They must have discovered that Zahari had been depressed. He was very lonely. He was separated from his wife. He was completely estranged from his grown children, and he lived this kind of aimless, bored existence in between flights.
Tinder.
Pardon?
Tinder.
What'd you say?
Plenty of
Tinder.
fish.
Oh, Tinder. I thought you
Tinder.
said dinner. Have dinner. I mean,
Eat dinner 4 times a day.
no, he just actually. It's funny you say that. He was. There were he was like some like flight attendants, things like that. He was.
Oh, really?
But not in a creepy way at all. He was
Well,
a
yes.
shy, nice person. He just was living a kind of a sad life, a lonely life. His calendar had no events whatsoever on it after March 8th, except for a single dental appointment for the end of the month.
Oh.
And I'm speculating here, but that dental appointment could have been made months ago.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
yeah, that.
I mean, that's a lot. Yeah, check of 6 months from now. Let's put it
Yeah.
on your calendar,
Right.
that kind of thing, or a year from now. Who knows? So,
Ding dong.
and then there was the flight simulator, the famous flight simulator. This case is kind of known for this. So,
Yeah.
Zahari had an at-home flight simulator. not a bad idea for a pilot. Just,
Yeah.
keep in practice, even though
Yeah.
he'd been
Stay
doing this
sharp.
for 30 years.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't stay in business for 30 years without practicing.
I suppose so.
I don't know.
That's true. A forensic examination, though, of that simulator by the FBI found that he had mimicked a flight exactly like the plane's last flight multiple times.
Hang on a second.
Yeah.
Malaysian officials allowed
Yes.
the U.S. FBI access to
They did.
that
That's
They did.
surprising.
simulator.
That's a
That
little bit
is
surprising. It is,
surprising.
but it's hard to say no.
Odd.
European. It wasn't just the
Well-
FBI. Europeans and Australians had access as well. The FBI, though,
Huh.
had a forensic scientist who could find out everything he had ever done on that flight simulator. It's
Wow.
by Microsoft,
Yeah.
by the way.
I mean, it would look pretty suspicious to say no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would.
It'd be like,
it would.
what are you're definitely hiding something.
So effectively, Zahari had
But still,
practiced this path back over Malaysia through the Strait of Malacca between Indonesia and Malaysia and out into the Indian Ocean, and then turning south for this long straight line into Indian Ocean, where the flight would just end when fuel ran out, and that's it, and he would be done with that flight simulation.
That's
It's
weird.
it's incredible. The family has tried to provide sort of innocent explanations for this, but there's just no rational explanation for
No,
that.
Honestly,
I
though.
can't imagine.
Of all flight paths to take,
It's
multiple
yeah,
times.
it's weird.
Yeah.
That one.
So, despite learning what they had learned from Zahari and his, knowing about his background and knowing about this flight simulator, the Malaysians' official report said, "Oh, wasn't him. He can't have been responsible." There's an obvious reason for that. There's a couple of
Yeah.
reasons. One, you avoid embarrassment.
Yeah.
Again, you something that makes the airline look bad, makes the country look bad, and you can get killed.
Yeah.
By this leader.
Oh, I have a good innocent explanation for it.
But
For what?
For him
Yeah.
that on his flight simulator. That's just something he did on his flight simulator, but he knew because he'd practiced it many times, right? Okay, so the criminal flight attendant gets
Yeah.
in there, and so he can't say anything.
Ah.
So he's thinking this plane might
yeah.
not make it.
Uh-huh.
We're going to be somewhere where nobody knows. I know I've done this on my flight simulator and it's saved on my history. I'll do that route. So when they're looking for the plane, if they look on my flight simulator, they'll see what I've done.
They
before.
will, but you have to take a step back. And why did he ever do this flight? The flight makes no. That's brilliant. I'm not saying it's not. It's genius. It
He's
just you take
thinking
one step back
10
before,
steps
and
ahead.
that part doesn't make a lot of sense.
She's playing 4D chess.
So, yeah.
Yep.
You are clinging to that
You
rogue
are,
flight
That's
attendant
good. It's
theory.
good. We're gonna workshop that. We're gonna take it to the
Yeah.
writers' room. We're gonna see what we can do about it.
Yeah.
Snakes
So
on that plane.
the other thing, though, for the Malaysians was even more obvious by admitting that their pilot had done it
Yeah.
and killed
Yeah.
these 229 people. It probably would have put Malaysian Airlines out of business.
Yeah.
And that was, again, this is a national treasure, this airline. It was a big deal for them. So I have saved, though, the dominant alternative argument to pilot suicide for now, or to explore it a little more involved, because I wanted to tell you about Zahari first, and that this is a theory that some accident in the cockpit or the plane occurred. Again, it's like not the hypoxia, but something happened, and there could have been a fire, an electrical mishap, something like that, and it caused the pilots to turn around. So this is important because it explains the first mysterious
Yeah.
happening, which is the U-turn.
And what, disabled communication equipment?
It doesn't explain that.
Presumably.
But-
No,
I
I'm
mean,
saying whatever happened. The
Yeah, it
accident or
would
whatever.
have to, but
It could.
we'll get into that in a second. But
Okay.
this is needed to explain the U-turn, that mysterious U-turn. But this argument says that the crew was then incapacitated somehow before they could land, and the autopilot then took over and took the plane on the rest of the way. I know you have problems with that. We'll talk about that
Yeah.
in a second. And this is important because, or at least they're saying that essentially they turned around to find some kind of a safe landing.
Yeah.
Something's happened. We got to go back to Malaysia and land.
But by that point,
Land in Vietnam.
that's what I was going to say. They were closer to Vietnam, or maybe not Vietnam, Cambodia
Yeah.
or something like that
No,
down there.
well-
This is riddled with holes.
Yeah.
And again, it's the primary alternative to pilot suicide, and the arguments against pilot suicide, the arguments against pilot suicide are basically, oh, he wasn't suicidal, his friends say, and he didn't leave a note. There really aren't any good arguments against pilot suicide,
Yeah.
other than Malaysians say, well, we talked to his friends and no one said he was suicidal.
That's kind of flimsy.
That's very flimsy.
Yeah.
So, for instance, whatever went wrong on the plane, whatever it was Why was there zero communication to the ground control that they were going to turn the plane around to find an immediate landing spot?
Yeah.
I mean,
I remember you said they tried calling him on his cell phone.
yes, they did, and he didn't answer.
But so a cell phone would work.
A cell phone would work.
Okay,
if he was
so
not
if the,
incapacitated. And
if the
he was,
communications equipment went down,
yes.
he still, or somebody could have
Yes.
used a cell phone.
Very much so.
Okay.
Very true. Some argue that the reason, okay, so basically this argument says they turned around and then they're trying to look for a safe landing spot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they say, well, the reason they didn't communicate and say, Mayday, Mayday, we're having trouble up here is because they're just so focused on landing the plane and navigating the plane that you're trained not to do that, which is
I don't think
childishly
that's
stupid.
true.
Not true at
There's,
all.
first of all, there's two of you. Second of
Yeah.
all,
And it's at your mouth already,
It's
right?
right.
I mean, it's not,
you have to just put the thing to your mouth. And, yeah, exactly.
No, they wear headsets,
Flick
don't they?
Flick a
Yeah.
button, I guess.
They got
the
and
Janet
say,
Jackson
Mayday,
mic.
Mayday. Here's what's happening as you fly the plane, or have the person
Yeah.
who's not doing the flying do that very simple call.
100%.
I mean, they'd want to help. They'd want
Comical.
ground help in finding a safe place to land.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Air traffic control is vital.
and
in
I'm sure
emergency
there is some
situations.
amount of training.
Yes, I'm
that
sure there is.
includes communication.
I'm not gonna say the
Yes.
website that makes this argument. It's I guess I will say it. A Skeptoid. He makes this
Oh.
argument that they're so well trained that they're trained not to. It's the dumbest thing he's
Wow.
ever said on that podcast.
Dave or whatever your name is.
Brian.
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 It's embarrassing. And then you'd want to also warn ahead to get medical help.
Yes.
You're gonna be coming in hot. You're going to need medical attention. You don't want to tell people we're going to land here. Where should we land? Tell us if
Yeah.
we're going to need medical
It'll be a
attention
rough
there.
landing.
You'd want to warn those on the ground. Hey,
Yeah.
I'm coming in. Get people out of there as best you can here in the next 5 minutes. Even a quick Mayday, Mayday.
Yeah.
We're having trouble. Would be that's which takes seconds. Would be better than nothing. And
Yeah.
there was nothing from the cockpit.
Yeah.
Just a good
So-
night and then nothing.
It's just honestly, it's ludicrous to say that they're just too busy effectively to be able to just say Mayday, Mayday, we're going
Yeah,
down.
I
We're
don't
coming
buy
back.
that.
Sorry.
It's
No.
And by the way, here's another thing though about this theory: the plane made multiple turns. There
Yes.
wasn't just that one mysterious U-turn.
Yeah.
And so now it's whether it's a hijacking or whether it's some mishap, some electrical or fire or something like that. After the U-turn, you have to argue that they're incapacitated and they went into autopilot, but that can't be
Right.
true because
Yeah.
they would have had to click autopilot back on A, and B, they would have had to then make these weird turns down
Yeah.
over Malaysia, down through the Strait of Malacca, up to the Andaman Sea, and then that left down into the Indian Ocean. They went over the entire Malay Peninsula. If you need to land
there.
Yeah.
The closest place you to is Kuala Lumpur Airport. Why would you just fly straight over it and into the ocean?
Maybe it was a speed situation where if they stopped flying or if they dipped below a certain
Yes.
altitude,
Yes.
the plane
plane
was
would blow
gonna
up?
explode.
and then they took that path through the Strait of Malacca that perfectly avoided detection as best you could in
Yeah.
that part of the ocean. So and of course there's the timing again. Remember the first U-turn happened just after the handoff to Vietnam. That's the perfect timing to go
Right.
missing.
Yeah.
It's
That's
that
just
can't- that-
very
that-
deliberate.
Too
Yeah.
many coincidences.
Could that be a coincidence? Yes, but there's a lot of coincidence, and it's
Yeah.
not a likely one. And then, of course, we think that someone disabled the communications and the electronics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, maybe communications were out, as part of this accident scenario, something
Right.
like that. But like you said, he could have called on his cell phone.
Yeah.
There'd be no and there's still no reason not to have landed quickly on the Malaysian peninsula, or to make those other weird maneuvers after that first U-turn.
Yeah.
It can never explain that. And then finally, of course, you have the simulator that was in Zahari's house. So think about this: you have this accident or something, you make this U-turn, and now you're incapacitated and you're on autopilot. Okay, you just happen to have. The plane just happens to go in the exact kind of flight path that you, Zahari, have been practicing at home on your simulator by accident.
Yeah.
A path that has no relation to an actual flight path to anywhere. A path that's exactly the same as
Yeah.
in real life, the plane does that exact same path, just totally coincidentally.
I don't think
because
though.
the pilots are incapacitated.
No, I'm not
Yeah.
a
I mean,
statistician. But I don't think that's plausible.
It's utterly ridiculous. I mean, it's not even
Yeah.
implausible, it's impossible.
Yeah, honestly though.
So sadly, but almost certainly, after turning back toward Malaysia, Captain Zahari depressurized the plane. We have good solid evidence to note that the plane was depressurized.
And
Which
they think he
is?
did it on purpose?
That he did it on purpose, and that explains because he basically rendered everyone in the plane unconscious. He
Yeah.
basically it went up to over 40,000 feet, which is at the cusp of how far and how high you can fly a Boeing 777, right? And so the oxygen mask would have gone down at some point in that ascent, but oxygen mask in the plane, they have about 15 minutes of oxygen.
That's it?
That's it. So
Oh.
the passengers flying at this height, the passengers would slowly lose consciousness and then they would die peacefully.
Well, so that was kind
But it was also
Like
to make
a
sure no
rat.
one. But as Jack said about cell phone, that's what I meant by why no one made.
Yeah.
What's happening? Cell phone or text or anything like that because they were unconscious and then
Incapacitated.
dead very quickly.
well,
Or very
15
soon.
minutes or so.
Yeah,
so
you don't know what's going on. You just slowly. You don't realize yourself. You're losing.
no, I
oxygen.
understand that,
Yeah.
but I'm
Yeah,
saying
that
when
does
the
make sense.
oxygen masks come down,
Mm-hmm.
nobody takes out their cell phone to say "I love you, Mom."
Well, you don't know you're going down. You're going higher. If anything, so you don't know you're going
Okay,
down. You don't
Dean,
think there's a.
you're on an airplane and the oxygen masks come down.
You think something's wrong immediately.
You're not going to panic and think something might be wrong. I might not make it to my destination.
Well, we don't know if the oxygen mask had gone down. They could have not gone down till people
in
were already
time.
unconscious.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Aren't they automatic?
Well, no, remember it's slowly being depressurized and it's slowly ascending. So I don't. Well, I don't know. I don't know. I don't have an
I'm
answer to
pretty
that.
sure they're
Yeah.
automatic.
Yeah, I know they're automatic, but when
Maybe.
do they?
They might
drop.
need a significant jump
Well,
in
I
pressure
imagine
for them
it's,
to trigger.
it's before the point where people are pretty close
But
to
did you
being
not listen to what I
unconscious.
just said?
Yeah,
Being
Carrie.
unconscious.
Yeah,
It's like a frog in the pan.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, shut the hell up. If it doesn't happen very quickly, if it's not like a sudden drop in pressure, maybe it doesn't trigger them as
Yes,
reliably.
But here's the thing, Carrie. We know it depressurized, and no one did contact anyone. So there's your answer. Maybe they should have, but they didn't. Maybe you think they
No,
would
I
have, but they
know.
didn't.
But so maybe
So
that
what?
maybe that is evidence that that's not what happened to all the.
No, we know they depressurized, and they would have had lacked oxygen to breathe. So yes,
How do they know it depressurized?
I forgot.
Did you-
There's
Yeah.
there's a couple technical reasons
It's
they know
really
that the plane
okay, yeah.
depressurized. Yes.
So then at that point, the pilot is using his auxiliary
he's using
oxygen.
so exactly. So Hari has
oxygen.
4 oxygen tanks that could last for hours.
What do we think he did with the co-pilot?
Did he knock him over the head?
I don't know. We don't know.
Yeah.
He could have poisoned him. He could have. Who
Whoa.
knows what he did?
Yeah. That,
Well, he could have
Jumped to
yeah.
poison.
I don't know. Here's your coffee.
Yeah. Well, honestly,
I made it myself.
Thinks he might have just cold clocked
He could
him
have
over
cold
the
cocked
head
exactly.
first.
He could have
Yeah.
he's got a wrench, whatever, and just I'm going back to smack, and he's unconscious, and he kills him.
A gun.
Yeah, he
No.
could have, or something, some kind of weapon.
Not a gun on a plane.
No,
well,
but
a pilot could probably
a
get
pilot
a gun
probably
on
could
a
get a gun on the
That's
plane,
true.
or just
If anyone
honestly
could.
a knife to the throat in a very sudden motion. You're not going to.
Although actually,
there's lots of ways he could have done that.
I hope a pilot couldn't get a gun on a plane.
I hope so,
I hope
too.
they search those
Yes,
I
do too.
agree.
guys too.
So he's on there with plenty
Why
of
not
air.
a woman? Why not a woman mom?
I mean, guys, plural, everybody. I was going to say
I-
motherfuckers. That's why.
Hey,
I changed
hey,
it
hey,
last second. I
explicit
didn't
rating.
have time
Thank
to
you.
think.
You didn't have time to get the feminism in your brain?
No.
So he turned off communications, other than that automated handshake with the satellite that he either didn't know about or couldn't turn off.
Yeah.
And then he continued over the mainland of Malaysia. He then passed. Remember, from episode 1, he
Yeah.
passed right by Penang Island on the western coast of Malaysia. This was his childhood home. That's where he was born and raised.
Oh.
Some
almost
people
like-
think that was not an accident.
Yeah.
Butterworth Air Force
Yeah.
Base, the Malaysian Air Force Base, is nearby there. And they, as we know, they failed to intercept this rogue plane.
Yeah.
They were later claimed that they didn't miss it. We didn't just not do our job. We knew it was a friendly, so we didn't feel we had to scramble airplanes, But
They
they
didn't
came in
think
for a lot of
anything was
criticism.
amiss.
They
Yeah.
honestly, they missed it. Someone was asleep at the wheel.
Would they know, even if they saw it, would they know? I mean, it's just a Malaysian plane, right? Would
Yeah.
they know it's not supposed to be there?
Probably, but they claim they thought we didn't think a big deal about it.
Yeah.
In reality,
Probably.
a lot of people think they just missed it.
Yeah.
I feel like not many flight paths go over there.
Yeah.
But he could have been relying on that. Zahari could have been relying on. Well, still, I'm a Malaysian
Right.
Malaysian jet passengers. They're not going to come shoot me down.
Yeah.
And then remember, he went into the Strait of Malacca to avoid going over in Indonesia, who would not
Yeah.
feel the same way about his Malaysian plane.
Yeah.
And then from there into open ocean.
Yeah.
So again, a route that it seems to me was clearly to avoid detection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he entered the strait at about 1:52 a.m. and for the next half hour, he headed northwest toward the Andaman Sea at full speed. And that was when the Malaysian Air Force received its last blip on their radar of Flight 370. So it is certain the passengers and crew were dead by this time, since at 2:25, the plane's satellite box came back online. And this is considered likely because the craft was repressurized. So he depressurized long enough to know everyone was dead. And then at 2:25 in the morning, he repressurized the plane, probably so he could walk around. I mean, there's no other reason. I mean, or his, so his air
didn't
lasted
have-
hours, but now he could
Exactly.
have air being and come in, and he
Right.
could
He didn't
go-
have to use his oxygen mask anymore.
Exactly, or he can also even leave the cockpit there
And get
So,
a coffee.
I don't know. I mean, you can imagine a horrible scene where Captain Zahari is alone on a plane full of corpses.
I don't wanna.
And he returns the plane to autopilot. It was returned to autopilot, and then it took its last, free float roam into the Indian Ocean to its end.
Free float Rome.
I don't know.
Free float and roam.
Sorry.
That sounds
sorry,
like a country
sorry for
song.
riffing.
I thought
Carrie.
it was more like a dive bomb.
No, remember it flew for 6 hours, going further and further.
No, I understand.
Well, once it ran
I'm
out
talking
of-
about the final.
Oh, okay.
Descent into
Yeah.
the
Okay.
ocean.
Well, I wasn't.
Oh.
So,
I thought you were. That's
No.
why. That's why I thought free float Rome
but
was a little odd.
hey,
choice
thanks
of
for
words.
making fun of my.
He
riff.
meant
Appreciate
he
it.
left the
Just
cockpit and
explain
just
my-
let it go.
Understanding.
Thanks a lot, Gary. Thanks a lot. Thanks for saying hurtful things.
She's on a roll. This
So that
podcast.
is the story of the disappearance of Flight
Oh, that's it.
370. That is it. I mean, so you really do come down to two things: is either pilot suicide or some kind of pilot's disabled, and they did this emergency turnaround, and after that, your story completely falls
Yeah.
apart if you
Okay.
wanted to make that claim.
So the world believes it was pilot suicide.
Tony Abbott, the Prime Minister of Australia, just in 2020,
Yeah.
said publicly that everyone knows it. Even I've talked to high Malaysian officials, and off the record, they know full well it's
They
pilot
think it-
suicide.
Okay, so that's
every country who's investigated this thinks it's pilot suicide, but a
Okay.
lot of people still adhere to this accent argument.
is so I was going to ask you, what's the official Malaysian government's?
I told you that earlier. The official Malaysian government
Position.
is that we don't know what happened.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's
they're not
mystery.
admitting that
Yeah,
it's possible.
but
publicly,
it
even
wasn't
though-
pilot suicide, is what they because
Oh,
again.
so they specifically.
Remember,
say
they
it
said
wasn't.
I mentioned that earlier too. That they said, "Oh no, we looked into the background and
Yeah.
there's no red flags there."
Not him.
Of course, there was gigantic red flags
Yeah.
behind Sahari. I'm not trying to badmouth Sahari or Malaysia and think that. It's just the evidence is overwhelming
Yeah.
that he flew the plane to its death.
And we wish that mental health wasn't stigmatized so
I
that
know.
he could have gotten treatment.
Absolutely,
Because
yeah.
if you think about it, somebody in his position, you're grounded.
my
So
God. Yep.
it's the one thing I have in
Yeah.
my life I
Yep.
don't have if I admit that if I'm struggling.
That's
and
absolutely true.
Yep.
There's a built-in, hurdle
Incentive to
to
not.
any pilot
Yeah.
ever going for mental health
Yeah.
help. Yeah,
There's a
you're
lot of
right.
those in this world. Y'all gotta stop.
And but like that, it's just like you could say, oh well, it should be anonymous or something like that. But then your psychologist, or whatever, is in this terrible position of knowing that what if they know a pilot is suicidal? What
Yeah.
What do you do? That's
Are they a
horrible.
mandated reporter? They
They
might
would almost certainly be in
something
that
like
case.
that. Yeah.
So and a pilot is going to know that,
Yeah.
and so a pilot's not going to go for that help,
Yeah.
and he didn't go for the help he should have gone for.
yeah.
Yeah. So
So maybe if you're having mental health struggles and you have that kind of a job, you still get to do your job, but you gotta have a buddy with you.
Well, that's a
he
co-pilot.
did have a buddy
Somebody-
with him,
He
and
did.
he disabled him.
But the buddy didn't know he was suicidal.
No, so your
that's
buddy,
a
your
big
buddy is
difference.
going to be like in a tense, ready to spring.
Suicide watch
Are you
buddy.
walking behind me? I mean, that would be impossible.
There'd be more than
One buddy.
a buddy who's not your co-pilot is what I mean.
Oh, so a third person in there, just
Yes.
like checking you out, watching you the whole
Almost
time.
like a sober companion.
Yeah.
But
That's not a great solution.
No,
but,
it's not.
You know what? Nice, good try though. Good try. Your scenarios were a little better. Your earlier scenarios,
Basically,
your
thanks.
movie thriller scenarios are
I'm
very
sticking
good.
with my whole radicalized flight
rogue,
attendant.
radicalized.
Radicalized? Did they have to be radicalized? Maybe the flight attendant was just.
The suicidal one.
Suicidal?
Yes. Yes. No. Okay.
Oh, she.
Have
well,
you
fine.
have you cast the movie yet, Carrie?
No.
Are you thinking? Okay. I see Gwyneth Paltrow as the radicalized flight attendant because I don't like her.
No.
Okay, so that's.
Well, thanks, Dean. Super
You're welcome.
interesting.
I think so. I think it's a very fascinating. By the way, if I had to recommend one thing to read, it'd be the Atlantic article. It's a really, really strong
Atlantic has
article.
a lot of good articles.
They do.
Well, I'm glad I don't have any flights coming up anytime soon.
I do. So great. Good for me.
Well, it's rare.
We should all be allowed to meet our pilot and just kind of like,
Scope them out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Psychoanalyze them a little bit.
Today?
How are you feeling today?
Yes. Well,
Kind of down in the dumps. I'm
your home
going
life?
to get off this plane. So
Can I
yes,
see your calendar, please?
oh my God.
Carrie, can't believe you're making light of the situation. You and only you and not us. So this is a terrible. It was a horrible tragedy. Let's not forget,
Yeah.
239 people died, including
Yes.
Zahari.
Isn't
and-
there like a picture of like a mom and her son?
Oh, it was awful. There were
Right
kids.
before
there were kids on the plane.
they're taking off.
There was everyone on that plane.
And it was
that
like
you
the
can
last
imagine. Yeah.
picture.
Yeah, that's why it is so horrible and so awful for someone to do that. If that's how you're feeling, to do it that
Yes.
way is just inexcusable,
Really,
and
though.
unforgivable.
Yep.
Okay, thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
All right, bye.
Goodbye.